Hey everybody, Sexy Matt the Pharaoh Wizard here. So year 5 of the Arrowverse has ended, and I'd like to talk about it. Now I haven't really done this before. I did do my review of the crossover mid-season, but I've never done a full year review of the Arrowverse. And I have been a fan since the first season of Arrow, and I've been following it along the whole time. So I thought it'd be time for me to finally, talk about it. And if you're unaware, the Arrowverse are the comic book DC shows that show up on the CW. That is Arrow, The Flash, Supergirl, and Legends of Tomorrow. So I'd like to give a little review of this year in those shows. Now, fair warning, this is spoilers for all those shows and previous seasons, everything that went on. So if you're not caught up, this may not be the video for you. If you're only watching one specific show and you just want me to talk about that show, down below in the description I put the time codes of the specific shows that I talk about if you'd like to jump straight to those shows. Now, before I get right into it, I'd like to just give some credit where credit is due, and I'd like to mention that the CW, all these shows have or between all of them, they have a gay couple, a lesbian couple, interracial couples, no transgender yet, but they're very progressive that way, and I like to give credit where credit's due, because usually they're not even seen as like a big thing. It's just like, well, that's part of the character. And I like that. The fact that it's not a big thing is a big thing to me, that they're just like, this is the character, this is who he is, just deal with it. There's not like a whole person like, ew, that's gross, or a whole episode dedicated to it. It's just a thing. So I'd like to just acknowledge that real quick. Now let's get into it. Now the order that I'm going to review these in are from my weakest pick to my favorite show of the season. So let's get into it.
Arrow, Season 5.
Alright, so the main plot of this season of Arrow is, due to the events of last season, Oliver Queen is now the mayor of Star City, and he has to put together a team to help him, guard the city while he's being mayor. That team consists of Wild Dog, Mr. Terrific, Ragman, and Artemis. And then eventually another new Black Canary. The main overall villain of the season is Prometheus, or also in the show is also known as the Throwing Star Killer to the wide public. And he pushes Oliver Queen to his breaking point, and is if he can handle a team and be mayor, and one of the hardest struggles of his superhero career. So what did I like about this season of Arrow? Well, first off, biggest thing, it's official. This is the end of the flashbacks. Time to celebrate.
Well, this calls for a celebration. I will.
I've, been very lackadaisical on the flashbacks. Really didn't care for them, and they've gotten worse over time. So it's finally good. There's an end to the flashbacks. No more flashbacks. They've completely stripped any mystery that could have happened on the island. So we're done with that. We're just doing straight shows now, and that's awesome. Now, another better positive for the season is once they started focusing on Prometheus, the last 5 or 6 episodes, and really pushing Arrow to his breaking point, were fantastic. And I liked, seeing how far they can take Ollie before he breaks, and can he keep the team together, and they really push it where it can go, and I like that a lot. Once they started really focusing the season, it was really fantastic, and the last 5 episodes were great. The other part that I really liked is the final episode wasn't a big destruction of the city. They've done that every season, and it's good to see just a point of a more centralized story to Arrow and people around him, rather than the whole city's now being destroyed. It's just, a problem with the hero and the villain, and I like that. It kind of, why would people still live in Star City if it's getting destroyed every year? So it's kind of good to see that happen. So that was a very good ending to the season for sure. Now, what I didn't like about this season, like I said, didn't care for the flashbacks. And this season, I've hated the flashbacks. They have been boring. I didn't care. There's really no shift between Oliver Young and Oliver Old. It's just very forced, and I don't care for it. As well as like the ending, like he was wearing a wig and a beard, a fake wig and beard, when he was met by the boat at the beginning of season 1. So he really wasn't on the island to get all grisly. It was really dumb. Really kind of pissed me off. So I'm glad that's done. But yeah, this season's flashbacks have been the worst. I've not cared for them whatsoever. And along with the team, just the whole lot of infighting, I didn't care for, and I don't get the point of the team as much. They could have balanced it more with like him. I can't be Arrow because I'm the mayor, and so let me, be a mentor to this new team. But they didn't really do that. And the original Team Arrow was more organic to the story. They've shown up within episodes and built themselves up to be in this team. This time they're just recruiting random people, and now we're a team. Wild Dog's never shown up before. Artemis was kind of in like one episode last season. Mr. Terrific, I guess, was kind of built up, but outside of that, a new Black Canary that came out of nowhere, and Mr. Ragman came out of nowhere. So it was just, it wasn't organic to build this team. It was more just like, well, we need another Team Arrow. Just, grab some comic characters, throw them in there. So yeah, I didn't necessarily care for that. And then, of course, I am actually an Olicity shipper for sure. I love when Oliver and Felicity are together. I think they make a great couple. And this season was a whole lot of, will they or won't they? He did this and she did this. And, oh, is this going to happen? And that wore really thin. And, yeah, I couldn't take it. That was really bad. So, overall, it was a good season once they focused on, once they focused in. The last 5 episodes were great. But overall, it was a very weak season. Took a lot to get going, and it felt very extraneous. So definitely the weakest. Next show.
Legends of Tomorrow, Season 2.
Alright, so the overall plot of this season of Legends of Tomorrow is basically the Legends are against the Legion of Doom, which consists of the Reverse Flash, Damien Dark, and Malcolm Merlyn, all from different times. Basically, due to the events of Flash, in this season of Flash, which, again, really cool crossover idea. Anyways, the Reverse Flash is now a time remnant and is running against the clock to be erased, and he's going after the Spear of Destiny so he can rewrite reality and exist, basically. And he recruits 2 people to help him out with that. So yeah, very cool, and that's the overall plot. So what I liked about this season, first of all, it's overall just a way better season than last season. Last season was very like, this is the 60s episode, this is the 50s episode. Yeah, they didn't do that as much. This is more like a straightforward overall arcing storyline. I mean, they do time periods, but it wasn't like, let's solve a thing in the 50s, now let's go to the 80s, let's solve a thing. Like, this had an overall arcing plot that felt a lot stronger and a lot better. I definitely like the inclusion of the Justice Society, and specifically Stargirl in 2 episodes. I've been a fan of Stargirl ever since Justice League Unlimited, and I've never would have thought I would have seen her in a live-action role, and they did a great job with her, and I love what they did. I just wished we would have gotten some more. Another part I like is they add 2 new members of the Legends, and that is Vixen, but Vixen from the 50s, so it's a different Vixen from the one in Arrow in the previous season, as well as Citizen Steel, who's a play on Commander Steel. And both of them worked out really well. I like the effects done with their powers. When Citizen Steel like steels up, as he calls it, and becomes like made out of steel, it looks really good. Vixen's power, where she gets the animal spirit, looks really great, and both actors are done very well. So yeah, just overall, any additions to the show were very well done, and the overall plot was just way better than the previous season. What I didn't like about this season is, first off, bringing back Captain Cold left me a little cold. But yeah, no, what happened obviously last season, he died sacrificing himself for the team. But bringing him back kind of just waters that down. And I really don't like when shows do this, when they kill a popular character and they actually do a good job doing it and ending his storyline and things, but then they're like, oh crap, he was popular, we gotta bring him back. And it just, takes away from what he did to die and things like that. It's been done in a lot of other shows, and I don't care for it. And I don't care for it here. I think he should have stayed dead. I mean, I like Captain Cold too, but just let him stay dead. And then still the same problem from the previous season erupts in this one, and that is, we can't change time except this one time. We can't change this except this. Overall, just that, we can't do this, but we're gonna do it. Yeah, that overall thing was started in the first season and leads into this season, and I don't care for it. It needs to stop. But overall, much better season, a lot stronger plot line. I like the villains a lot more, and it ties into all what's going on in the other shows a lot better. I like the additions to the team. Overall, just an upgrade from the previous season. It didn't have any breakout moments, and I think that's why it's lower on the list for me, but in the end, it was still very enjoyable. Next show.
The Flash Season 3.
So I took a poll on Twitter and asked what your guys' favorite show of this year of the Arrowverse was, and you all said The Flash. I mean, it barely beat out Supergirl, but it was The Flash. Obviously, if you know where we're at on the list, I slightly disagree, but just barely, and I think it really goes with the poll. It just barely beat out. So, the plot of this season of The Flash is due to the death of his father in the previous season. Flash decides to go back and save his mother, creating an alternate reality known as Flashpoint. Going into this Flashpoint, he decides it's a bad idea and decides to revert everything back to normal, but not everything goes back to normal, and there are minor changes that will bite Barry's ass in the end. And our overall arcing villain this time is Savitar. So that's Flash. So what I liked about this season, first of all, is Savitar. His design, his menacing, the reveal of who Savitar is was all fantastic. I loved this villain. He did a great job. He was a definite upgrade from previous villains and had a good story arc and filled out the season really well. I like this villain a lot. On top of that, again, some more great emotional scenes from Flash. As we all know, if you're a Flash fan, Flash brings the feels, and it definitely brings the feels here. There's some great moments between Barry and Iris, and just some great emotional scenes. Another thing it's a good time to mention is I love the crossover musical episode with Supergirl. I thought that was great. I would love to see some smaller crossovers between the shows, but this one was really good, and the way Kara and Barry bounce off each other is fantastic. I really loved that episode. And introduction of new villains and heroes was fantastic as well. They found a new way to do a Monster of the Week. The first season was because of the accelerator explosion. Second season were interdimensional people. This season was Savitar was giving people their powers back who had powers in Flashpoint but didn't have them in the regular reality. And I like that. I don't know where they're going to go the next season with this, but where it worked here was fantastic. And then the introduction of Kid Flash and Jesse Quick were fantastic. They looked great. I like what they did there. And then also Cisco fully becoming Vibe and actually having a costume also looked great. So really some good build up there and some great hero-villain moments. And that was fantastic. Now what I didn't like about this season, of course, I just said how much I liked Savitar, but again, in the end, he is still just another speedster, and that was the villain in the previous 2 seasons. So it felt a little samey that we got another speedster who's faster than Barry still, and he can't be that fast. And yeah, that felt like, we're doing this again. So that was a little weak. The other part I really didn't care for is Caitlin Snow's overarching plot in this season. So basically, she has her cold powers now, but if she gives into them, she becomes Killer Frost and has to be evil. And I don't understand why her having powers just makes her evil. It just, to me, it wasn't explained very well, or why she has to be evil. They've said people with powers aren't necessarily evil. So she has to become evil, it seems, just because Killer Frost is a villain in the comics. I don't get why she has to be evil when she has her powers. And she wasn't like given her powers from Savitar. It was just due to the changes in reality because of Flashpoint. She has powers now, but it's not handled very well. I don't get why she has to be evil, and I don't care for it. I don't like it. And finally, the part I didn't like is the character of Julian, who's introduced. Initially, he's Dr. Alchemy, and was done pretty well, and had the voice of Tobin Bell from Saw, which was cool. It makes him super menacing. But once he's kind of resolved from that plot line of being Dr. Alchemy, he's pretty much an extraneous character, and is just annoying and gets in the way. And just, another fast-talking smart guy on Team Flash, and yeah, very extraneous. I don't care for it. But in the end, another very good season from Flash. Flash has been so good. I love what they're doing. I don't know where it's going to go next season because how it ended was so crazy. But really good ending. Overall, a solid season. So here is my favorite show of Arrowverse Year 5.
Supergirl Season 2.
So yes, Supergirl is my favorite show from this year's Arrowverse, and rightfully so, and it just barely lost to Flash on my Twitter poll. But this plot of this season was due to the events of previous season. Kara is now the official protector of National City, as well as a reporter, and is figuring out the balance of being Supergirl and also being Kara, and having relationships, but also saving the city. And it has 2 main overall villains, the scientific, community or group of Cadmus, who's a big name in the Superman, universe and things like that, as well as the alien species, the Daxamites. And it's kind of cool because they both have different objectives. Because of Season 1, now aliens are seen as like part of society, and they're living among us. But Cadmus wants to get rid of all the aliens, and then the Daxamites come in and they want to control and take over the world. So what I like about this season, of course, first off, is Melissa Benoist playing Supergirl is so good and keeps it up this season. A minor life complaint I had is all the people gushing over Wonder Woman in that movie and what she does in that movie is all stuff Melissa's been doing for 2 seasons of Supergirl. And even though, Melissa, congratulated Gal Gadot in playing Wonder Woman, it's like she's been doing it for a while. I wouldn't say first, but she's been doing it for a while. Watch Supergirl, people. Come on. But in the end, yeah, Supergirl is great, and I love the way she plays her. Another thing I really liked is her sister Alex has an amazing subplot going throughout this season where she basically realizes she's a late-in-life lesbian. And it's not like, it's not fetishized where it's like, ooh, this is the episode where the girls kiss. It's very real, and it's very emotional, and it's done fantastic. I love this, this subplot. I think it was done really well, and yeah, it's just solid, and some great acting moments, some great character moments. It was fantastic. Now, another thing I liked is the 2 villains. Having that break and having Cadmus be the first villain, and then the Daxamites take over later, was a really great way to stretch out the season without having to stretch out the villain. In all the previous shows, it does kind of start feeling like they're stretching to get to those episodes, and this villain's kind of plot has run thin. So having the two and kind of breaking it up, but still having them connect at the end was a fantastic idea, and I liked it. And using Cadmus brought in some more, technological villains, which broke up just having alien villains all the time, which is great, and I actually loved that they did that, and it worked well. And of course, the last thing I got to bring up is the introduction of Superman.
Superman!
I love this Superman. He is so great. And like the 3 episodes that he is in, he is way better than anything Henry Cavill does. He is so full of hope. He's got such a great attitude. He looks great. I think this is a fantastic Superman. I love him. I think the best Superman since Christopher Reeves. I'm going to put my stamp on that and then say it. He is a fantastic Superman. I love what they did there. And they also didn't have him overshadow Supergirl. She was still the star of the show, but you can have Superman come in. And also, I'm a fan of it because it opens up possibilities that we finally get a Batman or, Aquaman or even a Wonder Woman in this universe. It's fantastic. So hopefully it leads to more things, but what they did with this Superman is so great. Now, really, the only thing I didn't like about the season is a minor nitpick, but I'll bring it up, is a lot of the alien oppression that they do in this season is a little bit on-the-nose political commentary, and it's a little bit beat you over the head with it. I mean, I agree with what they did, but it's still just very heavy-handed, and it detracts from the show. But really, that's my only complaint this season of Supergirl. It was just really good. And the season finale had me in tears. I love what they did there. And it was really, really good. So in the end, here's my hierarchy of the Arrowverse shows this season. But yeah, it was a very good season and a very good year for this. I can't wait to see what they do. Of course, we're getting Black Lightning, another show added to this, so I'll even have less of a life trying to keep up with all these shows. But we're going to have Black Lightning, and what I'd love to see, although it's not going to happen, obviously, is I'd like to see Arrow take a year off and just have Oliver Queen kind of be a recluse and kind of jump in and out of different shows, and maybe have him collecting heroes to finally make the Justice League. So hopefully we'll see that in the future, and I'd love to see a Nightwing in this universe, because they've mentioned Bloodhaven so many times, and I think even gone there, so I want to see a Nightwing. But you know what, overall, good season. I can't wait for next season. What'd you guys think? What was your favorite show? What was your least favorite show this year? Let me know in the comments below, and give me a thumbs up if you think I'm awesome and you think this show is awesome and you think the Arrowverse is awesome. Give me a thumbs up. Until next time, I'm Sexy Matt the Pharaoh Wizard. Hold on to your hold slots.